Hello, welcome everyone. Today I want to talk to you about this gentleman here. Christian, he's 34. He loves to travel with the netties, his lady. He also loves getting out in nature, something that we've started to rediscover. He lives in the concrete jungle of New York City, and so getting out and hiking and stuff is something that his getting a love for. And he's an introvert at heart, but in the right situation, he goes full extrovert mode. But why is he here? He's down 45 pounds in about 15, 16 weeks, and that's incredible. And we wanted to share a story. So, Christian, tell us a little bit about who you are and what do you do and what got you in the situation where you're at in the first place when we met.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Brian. So, as Brian mentioned, my name is Christian. I work at Memorial Sloan Kettering as essentially working with like research billing. When I'm not working in my main job, I also like to teach on Saturdays. I teach a variety of classes, been doing that for almost a decade. And when I'm not working, I like to have fun either by, again, hiking, hanging out with friends, playing some real games, or hanging out with my girlfriend.
Yeah,
All good times.
definitely, definitely. So, let's rewind it back here a couple
Mhm.
months. What got you? What state were you in? Where was your body, your mind, your health?
Yeah, so a few months ago, or I should say earlier in the beginning of this year, it was definitely a bit of a wake-up call of in terms of me wanting to change for the better. It was not just one event, but multiple. Unfortunately, lost my mother-in-law. My
Yeah,
mother's health was not in the best condition. Um, Mentally, I wasn't happy with my previous job at the year. And then towards the end of 2024, I got pneumonia, what they consider or what they nickname, I guess you could say, is walking pneumonia, which is
right,
supposed to be a class that doesn't really affect you. But unfortunately, I was hospitalized for a week. So I
uh,
was angry about the situation,
right,
disappointed in myself because I felt that because of what I had, that shouldn't have affected me as severely. And one other thing, just briefly, with everything happening with Luigi Manginoni and Brian Thompson, it kind of really evaluated how I should approach health insurance and essentially take advantage with what I have. So all of
right.
those events kind of put into perspective that going into 2025, I should definitely approach it with an open mind and change what I'm currently was or were doing.
Right, definitely. Where was the body physically at, weight wise, and all that?
Oh, weight wise, I think I was like about 315, minimal working out. It was probably one of the worst, like
Right.
physically worst points of my life. You can say that honestly. And
Yeah.
also my job is pretty much from home. So that kind of it led to an easy sedentary lifestyle.
Yep.
Sedentary. Yeah.
Just sitting. The fridge is what? Just you're over in the NYC area. Your house is
No.
probably relatively small, so the fridge is what, 10 steps away or something.
Well, so thankfully our place is a little bit bigger
Oh,
than the
nice.
average
Good,
place.
good, good.
But don't worry, have a mini fridge 2 steps ahead, so you're not off.
Okay. Right now we have water and healthy snacks in there. Uh,
Yeah.
that's excellent. All right. So scale had climbed. What was the precipitous, what
Mhm.
pushed you over the edge? Was it the scale? Was it an event? What was this culmination of like, I got to do something now?
Well, as discussed with everything happening, I had a lot of events with my girlfriend during February that we were celebrating and just enjoying the company of others. And during that time, I realized, man, I also haven't been to a doctor's visit from quite some time. And I want to say when Brian and I talked, it was early February, and then right before that, in late January, I finally had a PCP, and my blood results came back, and thankfully, my blood sugar and my cholesterol or blood pressure were a little high, but it wasn't as severe as someone as over 300 pounds you would typically
Right.
consider. So that was another wake up call that said, hey, you
Sure.
know I can't be lucky forever. I can't abuse the one body I have, so I should take advantage and, start this journey before anything does come up health-wise.
Right. And unfortunately, I meet people in some of the worst situations that they've been in, right? That
Hmm.
usually is the thing that rings the alarm and inspires action. It's very rare that if someone says, "Brian, I'm in really good health. I just want to stay here. Let's work together." Right?
Hmm.
That's not usually it. But a doctor's visit, clothes don't fit, they see themselves in a picture or in the mirror or other times of connection with their partner and stuff,
Hmm.
they just don't feel themselves anymore. Now,
Yeah.
and so they take action. I'm glad that you did because it's been tremendous, 45 pounds or so. So, with that being said, what did you try on your own before? Had you tried anything in the past to lose weight?
Yeah, so that's another thing. Unfortunately, I have lost this weight before.
Oh man.
About yeah, about 7 years ago when I was around 27, I completed, I guess, my first weight loss journey, and I was 165.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I would say the creep up in terms of the weight started slowly within a couple of years, but like a lot of people, I'm sure could potentially relate when the pandemic happened and my situation in terms of work-wise was up in the air and things were, all chaotic. Unfortunately, when you're locked in your room by yourself with
Right.
what seems like the world crashing down, is
Yeah.
like, hello, my old friend, food. And since, from that point on, I felt that my weight unfortunately grew exponentially once more during that period.
Yeah. It was a big setback. Unfortunately, that was one of my busiest times I think I've ever had because
Yeah.
the sudden change and shift in lifestyle, right? And
Hmm.
remote work and sitting and being sedentary, right? You just never leave your house. And it's really easy not
Right.
to. All right. Now, what were some of the things that in that last process that you did? I remember it's a little bit, you're a little hungrier than you were this time around.
Yes, that is true. So what makes this time different compared to the previous times I lost weight was I always saw losing weight as a calorie deficit. If I
Right.
ate a little bit, 5 to 600 calories, and working out, then essentially I'm not eating anything, or the
Right.
calorie intake is, in the negative, so I must be doing great.
Right.
However, as I spoke with Brian before, it's when you take that approach, for the most part, all you're thinking about is food. So while you may be
Uh-huh.
making the right choices, mentally it's exhausting because that's all you could think about. And that's something, with Brian's help, that we as we like to say now, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change. So
Yes.
that was a different approach compared to what I've done, in the past myself. And while I have quote unquote seen success, clearly it wasn't, life change, well, not life changing, but it wasn't sustainable because I
Sustainable,
didn't
right?
really use the proper techniques.
Right, right. So we educated you and gave us found a better calorie amount. So we got some more
Yes.
activity in. What were some of the things that worked really well this time through our work, our coaching, and the process? Because you were really easy. Every week you show up and you're basically down 2, 3, sometimes even 4 pounds through the
Hmm.
process, but you weren't starving. You weren't,
No.
yeah, you were moving.
Hmm. Yeah. So, essentially, what was different, or what I did was, and still enjoying my breakfast. If I have lunch, in the beginning, I was having a meal for lunch, but as I was losing weight, it essentially cut down to maybe a piece or two of jerky and then some fruit for lunch. And then for dinner, it was a little bit heavier, where what essentially measuring out certain components were helpful, just so it was an eye opener as well.
Yeah,
So, a cup of carbs, a cup of protein, and in the beginning, try to get in at least 2 to 3 cups of veggies,
right.
which, and in my previous attempts, I've always saw veggies and fruit as priority, but not so much as a measurement, as just just to a point where I just had to get some in. versus at least let me get a benchmark of trying to eat this so that I don't feel like I'm starving the next day or, during the
Right.
day.
Right, right. Yeah, we did measure. We worked on proper portion control. We worked on getting enough protein in, better timing of food, better planning. You even went on a trip, right?
I did.
You were
Yes,
over in Spain and enjoyed that process, but
I
didn't get
did.
set back either.
No.
And how was that experience this go round? Traveling and actually making better choices for yourself.
It was great. I feel like in previous trips that, I've gone on, I've maybe binged or gone really hard when it comes to indulging myself. This time around, it wasn't as indulgent in the sense that I didn't feel like, oh wow, this looks great. Let me have it, even though I just ate 30 minutes ago. Oh, it's just a drink.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
30, come on, it can't be that bad. And I have to say that during this trip, I also like, tying back to me liking hiking and walking in general,
Oh
we did a
yeah.
lot of walking
Yep.
and it definitely helped with, digesting of the food, getting those
Right.
steps in. And when we came back from the trip, I think I gained maybe 2 to 3 pounds, considering I did enjoy myself, but
Yeah,
not
that
overly
was our
indulged.
goal was to
And
enjoy and not
yeah.
just but we had structured it in a way of that was the outcome that we were looking for and you
Hmm.
knew exactly what to do when you got back in town, back into
Yeah.
normal every day.
Exactly.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thank
And
you.
we had primarily we'd done walking as our main source of activity.
Yeah.
That obviously would prepare you for Spain, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
What would have been the experience you would have had if you went to Spain without walking so much, without losing at that point, what, 20 some to 30 pounds?
Yeah.
How would have that experience been different for you?
Oh, definitely would not have been as memorable just because I know, I would have felt bad because I definitely would have felt like I was holding back my girlfriend
Right.
who, is in better shape and can walk miles. So I know if I was in the sad
Right.
shape I was in January, it would have been like after a mile, damn, I'm hungry. Where are we going?
Right, right, right. Where are we gonna
Versus,
go sit some more?
yeah, exactly,
Not
exactly.
explore.
Versus this time where essentially, after 5 miles, 6, 7 miles, I'm like, man, I feel good. Just to tie in the story, I briefly told Brian, it was funny. We met a couple at Spain, and again, I thought I was doing well. And this was, an older couple, maybe in like their late 50s to early 60s, and they looked great. And one of them was saying, "Oh yeah, me and my husband, we walked 12 miles yesterday, 9 today." And I'm thinking in the back of my head, man, you ain't nothing. You gotta be up on these guys' levels. So that was
Yeah.
a nice little motivator to for
Yep.
the next trip to,
Yep.
keep on pushing.
Yep. And you're obviously heading in that direction.
Thank
Now,
you.
our starting point was 312, right? Something like that.
Yeah, about
About there.
312.
And you're at 270 as the last
Yeah,
time you stepped on. That's just awesome. Top one of
thank
the
you.
top tier clients, and that's why I had to get you on here and just share a little bit. What was some of the biggest challenge that you might have had to overcome when you first signed up? You just was there any type of a mental hurdle of like, oh, I need to ask for support or I need to what may have been standing in the way of you just getting the support straight away and not having any regrets on it?
Probably feeling the need to jump the gun, or not jump the gun, but needing the support of another individual.
Yeah,
My background is in the sciences and medicine, so a long time, I told myself like, you know what you need to do, you just have to do it. Like
right,
you understand the macros, the micros. It's not a weird concept for you.
right,
But I realized that while I have lost weight on my own before, I've never really had someone leading me in a particular direction, giving me tools and whatnot.
right,
So because I wanted that change and this isn't something I haven't done before, I figured, let me reach out, see, what type of experience
right,
this will be. And, having Brian weekly calls in the beginning, even more so, was just a great motivator just because I always, send. the weekly updates, and it's
Yep.
I was like, man, if I don't if that number is not going down, the call is gonna be bad.
A little bit of egg on your face in a sense, but
Yeah.
on our face, right? Because if we're teamwork
Mhm.
makes the dream work and we have to work
Yeah.
together. That's so important. So when people show up on my doorstep in a sense, I'm always going to meet them where they're at and move them in incremental uh, s- steps.
Hmm.
So make sure that they understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, how to do it, and start clearing any hurdles. So if someone were in a similar situation where you're at 300 pounds or just not feeling well in their clothes, they catch themselves in a picture they don't really like,
Hmm.
what advice would you give to them?
Uh, for one, it's okay. It happens to a lot of people. Don't punish yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for help, whether that is with a professional, a family, or friend.
Right.
And make sure when you are ready to make that lifestyle change, think of a game plan beforehand, just because, yeah, it's great to lose the weight, but think about what's next after the weight is gone. You
Right.
will lose the weight, you will get healthier, you will be better, but like I've mentioned before, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change.
Right.
So I would say the mental is just as important as the physical. So
Yeah.
having that support system, building a plan for oneself to know what to do after you accomplish your goal is definitely important advice, I would say.
Yeah, totally. Because I find oftentimes it's not a weight loss issue, it's a sustained weight loss effort. Like, how do I keep the
Mhm.
weight off, right? Not lose the weight. People lose but they regain the weight so many times. And
Mhm.
next thing you know, they've lost 100 pounds when they were only supposed to lose 30 or something, right? They
Right.
just gone through this yo-yo loop of losing and gaining. And once we
Mhm.
understand science-backed information around nutrition, around moving appropriately for your body, around putting into your everyday lifestyle, your habits, your routines, your
Mhm.
behaviors, we take a 360 look at what's going on in your life and where the challenges are and what I would call a micro solution for you specifically to be able to figure that out and move, be able to
Mhm.
overcome it, right?
Right.
So that's a huge important piece of this for that sustainability. What we do in 2 weeks,
Mhm.
we did in 2 months, and we would love for you to do in 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So we'll just keep the weight going down, and then we'll get into a weight maintenance plan and approach, and you're going
Mhm.
to be adding a lot more structured, exercise in, as say the gym, and that'll be part of the process. And we mainly walked and just controlled
Mhm.
calories and better portions because you had the best looking pictures of food out of anyone I was in. It's like, wow, I would come over for breakfast for
Yeah.
sure. Well, I so appreciate you coming on. For one,
Yeah,
coming
of
on board
course.
with me, right? It's an honor when I have a client just hit it out of the park in terms of just getting sheer results. And we've done it in a sustainable way that you're happy and you're excited with, and you can continue until we get to our goal, which we're not
Yes.
there, and that's fine. It's
Yeah.
everyone's got their own journey, but this time you actually can see that it's going to be sustained, and
Mhm.
that's the best part. Now,
Yeah.
if you're someone watching in here and you are inspired by Christian's story, losing 45 pounds in about 4 months or so, then reach out. You can drop a line here on the comments. You can check out my website, Coach Brian Prana. It's actually brianprana.com or my socials. And then also I do have an email list that has 30 tips, easy actionable tips in 30 days, something you can subscribe to and start implementing literally as soon as you get the email. You can start doing one small little thing. So that'll be in the description and comments as well. But Christian, thank you so much for crushing it. And thank you for coming on board, sharing your story. And I'm looking forward to more progress because you're
No
just
problem.
going to the moon in a sense on this. And it's going to be really exciting to see where you land when we get you down to your goal weight. So, and thank everyone
Appreciate it.
else for checking this out and watching it. And off we go. Have a wonderful
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.